billion for drought and water resilience, and we know just how important those issues are throughout the state. There's $3.6 billion for a 3-year plan on addressing climate resilience. There's $3.9 billion for clean transportation, $1.1 billion for sustainable agriculture, $140 million over 2 years that'll address our circular economy to develop a sustainable economy and reduce plastic pollution. Cap and trade um, is very, very significant money because in the past, almost all of our funding to address wildfire has been to address suppressing the wildfire, and that's extremely important. We spend well over $3 billion annually on suppressing fire, but we've spent very, very little on the and it was about precisely this topic of what can we do better on the issue of prevention. And we had a very robust discussion, and it was following that the discussion began around increasing the funding for prevention strategies. And I'm very proud that that is now part of the budget. There's a lot more that we will need to do in the future, but we are really scaling up our efforts through this budget. I'm grateful for that. With that, I would like to turn the podium over to Governor Gavin Newsom. Governor, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. I appreciate Senator Member taking the time to come up from Southern California to be here at the signing of this important bill. Today's signing represents about a $15 billion commitment to climate resiliency. It's an unprecedented investment by any state in U.S. history. $15 billion commitment to address the issue of climate resiliency. I say that mindful of the debates that are going on in Washington, D.C., the debates and the finger pointing and all the scapegoating, consternation, hand-wringing. Here we are in California getting things done. And we have a responsibility in California to get things consider this fact. Just since 2020, 6 of the 7 largest wildfires have occurred in California history. Just this year, we have experienced another devastating wildfire season. 2.35 million acres have burned so far this year. And I say so far because I am mindful that we are entering into what has become increasingly the peak of the fire season, entering into the fire season. Consider what happened in Paradise in November a few years ago. These fire seasons that have been extended where there's arguably no season any longer, the Santa Ana winds that come up, the Southern California prospects of seeing increased fire activity. And here we are in what some have referred to as asbestos forests. See that on the coast primarily, particularly in the Santa Cruz Mountains. We saw that a year and a half or so ago, and some of those coastal redwoods that were burning up. And here we are with these sentinels to our history, not just human history. I mean, this is remarkable. You've got trees that quite literally date back over 3,300 years ago. You can't rebuild a giant sequoia, in a few years and have a groundbreaking. I mean, you can replant it and come back in 3,000 years to enjoy it. And that's why we're here with a deep sense of urgency, appreciation, humility as human beings for the world we inherited, that we want our kids and grandkids to inherit. But on the track we're on, our kids are going to inherit a world with 8-degree higher temperatures than they have today. We're on that path. I'm not talking Celsius. No one understands Celsius. We got to disabuse ourselves at 1.5. I mean, 8 degrees. We understand 8 degrees. You understand 40, not 30. You understand it when it's 110, not 100. 8 degrees. I mean, that's the track we're on. That's the inheritance we're leaving to our kids. You can imagine our grandkids, unless we do something radically different. And so we feel a deep sense of responsibility here in the state of California because of the smash mouth realities of climate change, not just the issues of the acuity and frequency and duration of these wildfires, but also what's happening with this mega drought over the course, over the entire west coast of the United States. This mega drought that's led California to be in a position where we are today with the depletion of our reservoirs that are almost at historic lows. And so often is the case as we see our remarkable mutual aid come up here battling the KMP complex, which by the way now is about 33,000 acres. 0% contained. 33,000 acres, just this complex. We got the Windy fire nearby, 36,000 acres, and burning just 6% contained. 10 active now, large-scale wildfires that we're battling in the state of California. And while we've substantially buttoned up the Dixie Fire and the Calder Fire, we are battling these fires that have just enlivened us and enraged many of us. I mean, these is, these wildfires, climate is not just about degrees, and not just about, decarbonization. It's about tradition. It's about lifestyles. It's about memories, quite literally being wiped off the map. Ask the folks up there. I flew over Grizzly Flats. My dad, we grew up in a place called Dutch Flat nearby. Grizzly Flats, a beautiful community. The mailbox, the P.O. box goes back to the gold rush. Wiped off the map. Greenville, wiped off the map. Paradise. I mean, traditions, lifestyle, people, places, wiped off the map. That's what climate is about. This pollution blanket we put up in the air. Question is, will these trees survive us? And our neglect, our arrogance, and our ways, our way of life. And so we're here mindful of that with a responsibility to do something about that because we believe we can change the course in the future. I'm optimistic about what this nation can do, what the world can do, certainly about what California can do. This simultaneous responsibility, not just crisis. Address the issues head on, more suppression, more wildfire prevention, more technology, more personnel, more support, mutual aid across the spectrum, different strategies, different approaches to wildfire suppression and prevention, but also mindful of our sustainable responsibilities to invest in innovation, invest in the future, future-proof California. And that's what this bill begins to do. Not just to climate-proof, but to future-proof California, to make us more resilient, make us more capable of addressing these extremes, extreme heat, extreme drought, and to invest in the kind of resiliency that's necessary at this moment. As the Assembly member noted, of that $15 billion, there's some particular areas that need to be highlighted. That $3.9 billion for electric vehicles, I mean, it's just, the federal government's debating, I think, about double that for the country. Just the state of California is doing close to $4 billion for electric vehicle infrastructure. Why are we doing that? Because our #1 export in California, electric vehicles. We have 34 manufacturing electric vehicle companies in California, 60 headquarter companies, 34 that are just doing manufacturing. It's the #1 export in the state of California. We want to dominate that future. You want to be big, you got to be big in big things. Electric vehicles is not just the next big thing. We already have 45% of America's electric vehicles in the state, but it will be dominantly one of the principal drivers of economic growth and equity in the state of California as we detoxify our air, clean up our water at the same time. $3.9 billion in this package. We have $1.1 billion, as was noted. It hasn't gotten as much attention. I appreciate the Assembly member bringing it up, around sustainable agriculture. We are proud of our agricultural community, hunting and forestry community that's larger than the next 5 states combined. Talk about rural America. It's right here in California. I'm proud of that. And we have a responsibility to show the way, to lead the way. And $1.1 billion, healthy forests, regenerative agriculture, strategies and supports to help with the transition for so many of our small, medium, and large farmers in this state. Best practices across the spectrum, and unprecedented support for our agricultural community in this climate resilience package. $3.7 billion for climate resiliency to deal with heat domes and heat scapes in urban parts of this state, and the Assembly members' community in his own backyard to deal with the inequities. Again, we talk about growth and inclusion as an economic development strategy. We talk about climate and equity as it relates to our strategy to change the way we produce and consume energy. So $3.7 billion investment just in that space. 4.6 to 5.2, the Assembly member used 4.6, we use 5.2 within the spectrum, depends how you define it, close to $5 billion for drought. We didn't do a bond, we're not waiting for the voters. We are investing in safe drinking water, consolidating smaller water supply systems, emergency water supplies to get us through this moment and to address long-term infrastructure, groundwater replenishment, water recycling programs, strategies for more conjunctive use, investing, yes, in storage, but we define storage broadly, not just the old hydrology storage above ground, but also below ground. And those investments, again, are without precedent in California as well. That's fundamentally what this package represents. And we came here fundamentally with two kids that are struggling with another crisis, and that's with COVID at the moment. I was telling them this morning where I was going, and I was reminding them that I came here with my dad. And I feel remiss, and they're just, the two of them are just 5 and 7, but I want them to be here, and I want them to be here with their kids. I want their kids to be there. You know, see it. It's the old adage, once a mind is stretched, it never goes back to its original form. These back to sort of humbling us. What drives us to a little stress may not be as stressful after you come out of the experience being here. And so that's why I'm so grateful to the superintendent, the entire team here for doing everything they can to protect this space. And that's where I'll close. I'll close where the Assembly member began. There's a $1.5 billion commitment to wildfire and forest management, vegetation, prescribed burns. There are such things as good fires. Notably, in fact, we're here effort by the U.S. on reasons we're confident we'll get through this. It's not just because of the wrapping behind me, but because of the years and years, decades of hard work. Those folks out on the line doing the hard work to protect this forest, to manage, actively manage the forest. It's been a century plus where we haven't been actively managing our forest. And we are putting an unprecedented, again, forgive me, I know hyperbole, but it's true, unprecedented investment, as the Assembly member said, in active forest management. And we have an unprecedented partner in President. We were there with them last week, talking about our shared stewardship agreement to double the amount of forest that we actively manage in partnership with the federal government, reminding you that 57% of the forests are federal forests, just 3% are under the jurisdiction of the state, just 3. 57% the federal government. We need the federal government to do more. We have an MOU, which is nothing more than a fancy way of saying a contract, a commitment, and we're hoping to get the money. So to Mitch McConnell, to all the folks in Washington, D.C., I hope you're paying attention. This is real. We need you to put down the swords, rhetorically and otherwise, get the damn job done. Support this state, our nation, your national forests. Support your kids and grandkids. Protect lifestyles and memories, places, communities. Support this package. Support an unprecedented investment into our kids' and grandkids' future? If not now, when in the hell are we going to do it? What more evidence do you need of a world that's heating up and our kids that are choking up and a growing number of acres and communities and states burning up? And so we are here in that spirit, some sense of determination, optimism, yeah, pointed critique, but respect for the job at hand and the job that will need to be done over the course of many, many decades to get us to where we all need to go. And so with that, I am now proud to sign this legislation, and I will end all of that by saying this, not only the Assembly member, but to the State Senate and the Assembly, thank you to their leadership, to all of your colleagues that overwhelmingly embraced not just the spirit, but the unprecedented investment with this budget, guided us with more specificity and nuance, and put something, as they say, on the desk that I think all Californians, 40 million Californians, could be proud of. So with that, let's sign this $15 billion package into law. And I'll give this to you. So with that, of course, happy to take any questions. But again, just thank you, all of the U.S. Forest Service, for a job well done for these sentinels, not just to our history, but to the history of the state and nation. There's nothing else. Eat your heart out. California, nothing like this exists anywhere on planet Earth. That's our home state. Deep pride. That's why I'm wearing the bear. So it's great to be here as a Californian. With that, happy to take any questions.
Senator Jocelyn Moran here with CBS 47. I wanted to start off just by asking you what goes through your head just driving up here. I mean, you're speaking, there are ashes falling. Obviously, you've been to many fire sites. This is a place that has gotten international attention because it's a place many people come to visit. So I kind of want to ask you, just standing there with the wrapping behind you, what kind of goes through your head? And in addition, if you could talk a little bit about your conversations with the park officials as far as the fire.
It's... I was there with President Trump in Paradise a few years ago, and I said, I'll never see anything like this again in my life. I saw in Greenville this year something that evocatively reminded me of those scenes and images of Paradise. I said to President Biden when we were here at Grizzly Flats that this is now the third community I've seen completely torn asunder, destroyed in just a couple of years. I mean, it's something's happening to the plumbing of the world. And I say this, and I said this to the president. I said, you're still debating folks that are in complete denial about COVID science and climate science, but you can't deny your own eyes. And this is not debatable any longer. I know we all have a responsibility to be better and to be bolder in terms of our strategies to address what we haven't addressed in decades in terms of vegetation and forest management. But it's not just that. The hots and dries, something profound and extreme is happening, and it's happening decades before the scientists even believed it was going to happen. It's here now. And so we have to disabuse ourselves, and we have to be bolder than ever. And so when I drive up here, it's not just intellectual. I guess you can cut that tape to the extent you're even interested in my response, but you asked and I appreciate it. It's not intellectual anymore, it's emotional. Because this is, the reason I talk in terms of people and lifestyles and traditions is I'm being a little selfish, like a kid. I was here as a kid, and they're wrapping a tree. They're wrapping a tree. They're putting tinfoil around a tree. I mean, think about that. How can that be? I was up there in the Redwoods. I mean, up there with the Karak and Yurok tribes. Went down on a canoe and put my hand in the water. It was like 80 degrees. And we're right there in the Eureka. It was 90-degree weather. And I'm thinking, how are these redwood trees going to survive what we've done to them? And so it's a more emotional and intense thing. And so when I come up here, I feel that emotion, not just a deep responsibility as governor.
Governor Newsom, Vanessa Vasconcellos with ABC 30. I wanted to discuss the significance. Why did you choose
I'm
this
sorry,
place?
you were just saying, forgive me.
I was going to try to avoid it.
No, thanks.
So I wanted to discuss the significance. Why did you choose this place to sign the bill? And is it any indicator that we're going to be seeing more proactive efforts when it comes to managing federal land when it comes to fire
Well, you
suppression
have.
efforts?
You've been seeing an unprecedented commitment to that in the last few years. I can only atone for the last 2.5 years, and we've put an unprecedented amount of money, time, energy, and focus on developing partnerships. Look, we were able to develop a partnership with the Trump administration, who said the answer to these problems was buying more rakes. And yet we still were able to work, not with the White House, but with the U.S. Forest Service during the Trump administration to sign a memorandum of understanding to double our active forest management. The problem was they didn't fund that. Now you have a president put in the budget not a modest increase, an unprecedented investment to help us fund this. So yes, we're here with a plan, soon with more federal resources, but right now more state resources than ever to more aggressively, proactively manage our forests, to provide more personnel, more support, more technology, more pre-positioning, more access to the tools of technology, satellite technology, drone technology, LiDAR technology. All that's in this budget. More support for local communities, our mutual aid program, and more intentionality and alignment in terms of what we prioritize together, the U.S. Forest Service, private landowners, and the state itself. So I'm here in that light, but also highlighting two things. Again, I'll just remind you those two profound things. One is the work that's been done on prescribed burns to save this giant forest, which we need to do more of, to highlight that, and that's highlighted in this budget. And number two, to highlight our vulnerabilities and to remind people that this is not just about buildings. This is about things that are fundamentally irreplaceable, these sentinels to our history.
Hi, Governor. My name is Marie Edinger. I'm with Fox 26 News in Fresno. I'm wondering if you feel that this shift in focus to think more about prevention is going to have to be a permanent one, and why it wasn't done earlier by a predecessor of yours.
There was some modest investments in the last few years, the last administration. Of course, the acuity of this crisis has exposed itself, hasn't it? I'll repeat what I said. 6 out of the 7 largest wildfires in California history have occurred just since 2020. I mean, it's remarkable what's happened just the last few years. So this is moving at a rate and speed that scientists had predicted, but predicted 10, 20, 30 years from now. And there's now a deeper sense of urgency. Again, I can't make up for 20, 30, 40. I can't make up for a century. I mean, I appreciate all these folks that have made professions out of talking about, what we should have done in 1823. It's important. I read interesting, but what are we going to do now? And we're here talking about what we're doing now. And it can't just be more CAL FIRE engines. It can't just be, you can't just be on that side of the aisle. And yes, we are investing more in equipment and personnel and support. And I appreciate the Biden administration's doing the same with the U.S. Forest Service and being a little more generous with providing resources to the Forest Service, including just salaries, to retain and recruit our foresters and hand crews and. But look, we're making the investments. I know it's not fast enough for some. We have 1,800 active projects that this state has identified. 1,800. We have what we call a living list of 1,800 projects. Got 99 done 2 years ago, 69 done last year. We got a significant increase. Some of these are huge projects. Some are more modest. Some are never going to be done because it's active and it's an ongoing responsibility to continue to get back in there. But you're talking about tens of millions of acres. And you're talking about extremes. This is the hottest summer you've ever lived through, that any of us have ever lived through. Your June, July, August, the hottest in your history. And we've been saying that every couple of years. So we have to also deal situationally with this as we deal with more sustainable forest management.
I just wanted to follow up on those projects. So some of them, of course, are fuel breaks in federal land. Are you seeing the support, and is there any plan to add dedicated resources just to maintaining those fuel breaks?
Well, we are. I mean, as I said, we have an active list. And I don't remember the exact nomenclature, but once a project's complete, then it goes on this active management list for us to continue to be vigilant and continue to maintain and continue to monitor that vegetation to make sure that we are being aggressive and proactive. But look, when the state manages 3% and the feds manage 57%, it gives you a sense of where the resource allocation may need to go. And right now, there's nothing comparable. California's active management is overwhelmingly supported, not just our state property, but over half of our investments have been in federal lands. We need the federal government to do more. And again, it's not a critique, it's not a gripe. We've got a president who gets it. He's been in office a few months, and he just put an unprecedented budget to put that investment in action, and we're grateful for that. We just need to see Congress get out of their own damn way.
And on a personal note, you had mentioned that you had been here before with your father. What do you remember of the trip, and what is it like seeing it?
I just
like
remember,
this
all
now?
I remember, I mean, I was funny. I was like, where's the picture I need? I was wanting to find the General Sherman picture, which is like a go-to. I couldn't find it, but it's the picture when you're driving under the tree. And I wish we were there today. We were supposed to do this there. Forgive me, I'm talking out loud. But the fire, unfortunately, spread, and so we couldn't get up there. So those are the iconic images. I wish I brought the picture. This is black and white days, but well, it's slightly colored. There was a 70s version. Look, those, and you also remember, it's funny, I saw a vestige of, I saw that cow, that large cow. It was stuff like that you remember as a kid, too. It's always interesting what kids remember. I see a few of you shaking your head because it's always those interesting signs. You know, San Francisco was the doggy diner sign. You know, it's like the biggest thing, you know, as a child near the zoo. Anyway, now I'm getting way off course.
Last question here.
Just wanted to ask a question again related to climate, but just wanted to ask you about the new water use data released for July that showed that urban water consumption across the state dropped just 1.8%. Compared to this time last year. So just wanted to see what your message is for Californians right now.
Look, that announcement came, I think, on the 8th of that month, so it wasn't even a full picture of a month. It was also the hottest July in history. So it was hotter than it was the prior year, the hottest August. You had much higher consumption reduction in Northern California, parts of the state, 17% reduction. So look, it takes a little time for people to wind up. So it's not a criticism at all. I think everybody. So over the course of the next few months, that was the case back when we had these old recommendations as well. And we'll do more. You heard the Water Board yesterday, day before yesterday, lay out specific strategies to promote the Save Our Water campaign and to do more outreach, more technical assistance. And I'm hopeful that the message will seep in. The new water year is October 1st. And we previewed some of the things that are on the table in terms of actions that we'll need to take if we have another year like we've had this last year. And so I'm very mindful of the work ahead of us and the extreme challenge we will have if we don't have a wet year. But we just encourage people do their best despite these challenging times. And look, I'm not naive as well. A time when you're asking people to voluntarily do this, and you're asking them mask, and you're asking them socially distance, and you're asking them to get vaccinated, and you're asking them to get, I mean, it's been hard. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask California. It really is. And so, we'll get there together. We've done it before. We met the 25% mandatory many years ago. And then we came into this drought with 16% less per capita consumption, which meant we made that permanent in many respects, at least that 16% reduction. So California knows how to do it, and I'm confident we'll get it done. And July, August, to me, are anomalous. I think you'll see September, October. I think the state will do what it always does, and that's meet the moment, and we'll get to where we need to go. With that, thank you all very, very much for coming out.
Big data collection. In 2018, we had an extraordinary hearing with the head of Facebook, Mr. Zuckerberg. He faced 42 senators who had questions for him because of overlapping jurisdiction of the committees. So it was an ordeal that went on for some period of time. I was somewhere in the middle of the pack. And the question I asked him was very basic. Would you mind sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night? And after a kind of embarrassed and awkward pause, he said, no. I said, well, would you mind sharing with us the emails that you've sent out in the last 24 hours and who you sent them to? He said, no. And I said, really, isn't that the issue we're getting down to? Privacy? And my right to say there's a line I'm going to draw and you can't cross it legally to invade my space and invade my privacy? In today's world, information is economic power. Companies are using it to make more money. I share the concerns of my colleagues that have enabled the collection of too much information by selected few giant companies. There could be benefits and efficiencies to big data, but there are costs and impact. And these costs and impact affect everyone, including our children. I introduced the Clean Slate for Kids Online Act because I was concerned with the amount of data collected and stored on our children and grandchildren. Every click a child makes on the internet leaves a trail of personal data that can last a lifetime. Companies that market online products and apps geared toward children are accumulating massive amounts of personal data, and the kids